many people think about Alcatraz. They may think of the worst criminals in history. Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, or Robert Stroud. Some say the worst of the worst. The one word many would use to describe the island prison was inescapable. But what happened when someone did escape? What happened when 3 people escaped? Frank Morris, with the brothers Jhon and Clarence Anglin, notoriously escaped Alcatraz and were never heard from again, that is, until the FBI received a letter 50 years later, and the way it was handled shocked the nation. Frank Morris, Jhon Anglin, and Clarence Anglin all lived full lives of crime. Imagine being 13 years old and having the desire and motivation to commit a bank robbery. These were the type of people that Morris and the Anglin brothers were. They led a life of crime, corruption, and schemes. The only place that could possibly contain them was the lonely, isolated island of Alcatraz. The prison was a specially designed place for prisoners that were deemed too dangerous or too much of a flight risk for regular prison sites. Frank Morris arrived in Alcatraz in 1960 for multiple robberies and attempts to escape other prisons. He was later joined by 2 acquaintances he had already known from previous stints, brothers Jhon and Clarence Anglin. The 2 were considered double trouble when it came to bank robberies, landing them in the maximum security prison that would keep them at bay. Frank Morris was known for his escape attempts, and he knew that this would be no different. He was determined that he would not be staying in Alcatraz for long, and now he had the partners he needed to get the job done. It was here that Morris and the Anglin brothers banded together in their adjoining cells to prove that Alcatraz was not as airtight as it seemed. They had formed their own kind of corrupt, twisted 3 musketeers. With Morris as the ringleader, the 3 began their scheme to be the first prisoners to successfully escape Alcatraz. They made dummy heads out of plastic paint and real human hair that would be placed in their beds in the hopes of tricking the guards during room checks, appearing as if they were sound asleep in their bunks. They used any tools they could find to drill small holes around the air vents in their cells, including actual spare blades and a DIY drill. They worked until they were able to remove the piece of wall that surrounded the vent, making a sizable hole for them to crawl through. They were able to climb through the hole and into a utility corridor behind their cells that was not surveilled by prison guards. It was through here that they could climb to the inside roof of their cell block, hoarding supplies and building the necessities of their escape. They used this attic-like space as their headquarters of planning. 3 were able to construct a raft, paddles, life preservers, and an inflation tube using various materials they could get their hands on. Somehow, no one noticed over 50 raincoats, real blades, and blocks of wood missing from the prison site. Keeping careful watch of the cells below and playing an accordion to mask the sound of the work they were doing, the 3 prisoners successfully returned every night for bed checks, with the guards having zero idea of their plan to make history. On the morning of June 11th, 1962, when the prison guards visited the cells of the Anglins and Morris, they noticed that something was off. The 3 prisoners were lying a little too still in their bunks. Upon further inspection, the DIY dummies were discovered, and the prison was immediately locked down. But the 3 escapees were already long gone. They'd climbed into the utility corridor, up into the roof to gather their supplies, through the ventilator onto the prison roof, and somehow scaled down the pipes to the ground, over the fence with a huge rubber raft. They launched their raft into the water, successfully escaping Alcatraz prison. Once it was realized that the 3 had escaped, the FBI and other major associations jumped on the case to find them. They urgently combed the water surrounding the island and spoke with family members to discern their whereabouts. It was clear that the family had not been harboring the fugitives, so they began to look at other options. Although it was considered an imperative feat to find the escapees, the agents and local police took at least a small amount of relief in the fact that the odds of their survival were low. The prison had been strategically placed in the middle of cold, treacherous waters that only the strongest swimmers could survive. If they were swimming, it was unlikely they would make the 1.5-mile trip to the nearest land. But it was soon discovered that they did not swim off of the island. The FBI had discovered remnants of their raft, paddle, and personal belongings on nearby Angel Island. But the physical state of the evidence caused the agents to believe that they did not survive the trek. They looked for evidence of an escape plan once they reached land, but they found no stolen cars or clothes. When 17 years had passed without any new leads, the FBI declared that they most likely drowned during their escape. Despite this declaration, many people believed and wanted to prove that they had survived the escape. Rumors swelled, and civilians acted like agents, desperate to find the truth. As time went on, the story of the three corrupt musketeers only intensified, as their stories were left completely to the imagination. Throughout the years, family members had been reported speaking with the fugitives, and the country turned those statements into fantastical stories. Their plan was dramatized to such a degree that a movie about their escape hit pop culture in 1979, the same year that the FBI officially closed their case. The FBI was confident that the three were no longer a threat to society. That is, until 34 years later. On one seemingly normal day, in 2013, the San Francisco police received a letter. It opened with, "My name is Jhon Anglin, and I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The police scrambled to read the rest of the letter, wondering if it could be possible that all three fugitives had escaped and stayed under the radar for 50 years. The letter detailed the fact that his brother Clarence and accomplice Frank had both passed away in the previous years of 2008 and 2005. "I am 83 years old, and in bad shape. I have cancer." The authentication process was immediate, and what felt like the longest process in the world. Hearts beat rapidly as they desperately waited for the results of the handwriting analysis by the FBI. Mugshots of the fugitives that had been modified to reflect their current age still circulated around the country. The case was still a topic of conversation after all these years. Was it possible that it could really be solved? The case was reopened. If you announce on TV that I will be promised to go first to jail for no more than a year and get medical attention, I will write back and let you know exactly where I am. This is no joke. After the analysis was complete, the results were inconclusive. The FBI had no way of knowing if this letter was really from Jhon Anglin, so the letter was kept hidden, avoiding another sensational frenzy throughout the country. In 2018, the letter was leaked to a local news station. The country was electrified by the news. Could this really be real? Is Jhon Anglin alive? Why didn't the FBI try to find him? Why was this buried for so long? A seemingly unending list of questions could not be ignored. The media reached out to the family for comment. The family expressed serious disapproval with the FBI's lack of communication and action in this new evidence. They were hurt that they were not made aware of this letter sooner, especially if that meant that their family member was dying of cancer. A nephew of Anglin reported that Jhon would write letters to his grandmother, but he could not concretely say whether he believed the letter was truly from Anglin or not. The authenticity of the letter still remains a mystery to this day, as well as the fate of Jhon Anglin and his accomplices. Whether the three twisted musketeers survived their escape from Alcatraz or not, their stories live on to this day. The prisoners had done what no one thought they could do. They escaped the inescapable. Will the letter ever be authenticated? Will Jhon Anglin be located? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you want to hear more stories like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to watch our next case. Until next time.